All right, we are back once again, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And that ain't just the double talk. Johnnie Torch live here once again, coming to you from Stately Torch Tower, looking high above the metropolis below. And, well, maybe not that high. It's not that high of a tower, but still, we get a good view. Anyway, we are back for our 64th Johnnie Torch Live, the Johnnie Torch program, brought to you each and every week, as always, by the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Comics. Check out my link in the description below. You'll find my website where we have the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Comics, action and adventure as you've never seen before. Sure to thrill and amaze you, excite and confound you, perhaps, but such is our greatest cartoon achievement, The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon, and I want you to check it out as soon as possible because I will be seeing you at KidsCon this year at the Radisson Hotel in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm going to be there June 10th on a Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I certainly hope it wasn't 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. I'd be very tired. But you got to be specific when you give these kind of announcements, so I specify. So check it out on their website. You can go to my website and you'll find the link on the front page to their website where you'll get all the details, all the directions, find out who else is going to be there. There's going to be some other exciting guests. And check out my Twitter page and link in the description below. You'll also be able to follow me on Twitter and see what other shenanigans I get myself into and craziness that seems to follow me. This is probably our last This Week in Comic Book Television for a while because next week will be Easter Eve on Saturday, so we're going to take that day off. I'm not sure exactly if we'll have another broadcast before then because Holy Week is busy. Someone like me that observes it. So I can't really give you a heads up on the schedule. There probably will be at least one more broadcast this week. I don't know if I'm going to try to cover some television shows as a This Week in Comic Book TV episode, or if I'm just going to do another Torch News Roundup or ranking video. I've got another ranking video in the works I'm thinking of doing. Check out the Batman movies. I ranked all the live-action solo Batman movies. That was a lot of fun. And we ranked the Spider-Man movies, 6 solo Spider-Man movies, also not too long ago. And that was a lot of fun. So check it out. If you've got 2 hours, hour and a half to kill. I always tell the story, but that's pretty much how I got into YouTube was as a cartoonist, you draw, you color, it's a little bit harder to write when you're listening to someone talking, but when you're drawing and you're coloring a story, you kind of need to have a little something else going on for ambiance. And that's when I sought out these great channels that had people talking about all the stuff that interested me. And I felt like I could join the conversation as well with my own channel. So thus, there you have it. Now, before we get into the actual discussion of the shows this week, I do have to put out a disclaimer, as I said on Twitter earlier on today, and that's the reason why this show is not going out live, mind you, because my computer is literally a piece of crap, and it crashed, and I lost all my show notes. So it's not enough that it took 2 hours to prepare the show because I have to get the images ready. I have to, fill in all the boxes for the live show and this and that, which takes about 2 hours to begin with. All the show notes went missing. So in order to have some kind of notes to remind me of certain story points and things that I want to discuss, I had to go to other sources, which means online recaps. And some people that recap the shows are very verbose, and it's hard to try to get through. Because when I'm taking notes, basically, I take the most bare minimum notes. I just say, whatever, Sophia shot dead, and I'll remember that and give my 2 cents about it. But in the case of other people, when they're making notes, they become very verbose. And so if this show is a little more stilted this week, where I'm going to have to stop and get a good glimpse of what's being written to remind me what the episodes were about, I apologize in advance. So here we go with the only way to spend your Saturday. Let's get right to it. Where shall we start? Where shall we begin? I think since we talked about Sophia, let's go to Gotham right off the bat. All right, Gotham this week. Ooh, Gotham, crazy Gotham. Always something going on there. All righty. I got my notes color coordinated. Which one was the. Let's see. All right. The Gotham notes were yellow. That's it. Alrighty. All right. So this week was a pretty good week for Gotham, to be honest with you. As far as Gotham goes, this certainly wasn't horrible. This was the same usual quirky nature of the show, plus some of the more interesting developments. Kind of a return to the status quo, to be honest, because we don't have Bruce acting like a little turd anymore. We don't have Harv still at odds with Jimbo. We have Oswald and Ed apparently making up, not kissing and making up, thankfully, but making up. Uh, so it's kind of returned to the status quo, which was, I think, a long time in coming because a lot of people, I don't know, I'll just speak for myself, we're growing tired of this sort of dragging the show thin with this, everybody was at each other's throats and at each other's odds. All right, so the week opens with Martine. Remember him? That's kind of the question. What has been happening with Martine? Because we know he survived. Penguin ended up taking the fall and going to jail for his murder, even though, obviously he was a protector of Martine, and Sophia had Martine, I believe, to make sure that Penguin stood, you know, docile and stood in jail, so to speak. So the Riddler rescues Martine and gives him, because Martine is a mute and he's writes down things in the paper, and so the Riddler managed to get him a book of notes that tell him how to escape while he blows up the pursuers. Um, So meanwhile, now we have Gordon and Bullock matching forces again, and they're trying to go after Mr. Penn, who was one of Oswald's men, I believe, and Zaz and what was the other guy's name? There was the other guy. He was from the comics too. He has the mohawk and he's black or whatever. I can't remember what his name was, but anyhow, Zaz goes off with him, and it's nice to see he's back because I was pretty sure that he was dead. Didn't he like die some kind of strange, sort of with finality? I mean, because nobody dies on Gotham, as we're going to see momentarily. I've already spoiled it, but we'll go on to that in a moment. Meanwhile, in the melee, while the confrontation between Zaz and other guy and Harv and Jim is going on, the Riddler breaks Oswald out of prison, or Arkham. I guess he's in Arkham. I don't know. So it's confusing. Let's see. So let's go back to Selina and Bruce, because I think that's better to try to get to that part of the story right now. So Selina comes in and realizes Bruce is back to being the normal Bruce Wayne and not being, like I said, like the little punk that you want to slap upside the head. And she asks for money. What else? And Bruce is willing to give it to her as usual, but he, realizes that she's in over her head as usual, and she wants to get the jewelry or whatever it is that she stole from the guy that Ivy killed, because all of a sudden, apparently, Selina has a conscience over killing people. Maybe it's because this guy was quote unquote innocent. As far as Ivy was concerned, he wasn't. But remember Selina killing the guy by pushing him out the window way back in, what was it, season 2? Maybe, was it? Or season 1? It might even been the end of season 1. But now all of a sudden, Selina has a conscience and she wants to get those jewelry items back to the family because, she doesn't want that guilt. So she wants to pay for the jewels and take them out of Hawk, as you would expect, the hawk shop owner, so to speak, uh, doesn't take well to the request, and there's a fight, and Bruce and Selina take them out. Pretty much the end of that subplot, and it's just nice to see them back together again in good graces. So that was fun. That was nice. All right. So now the Riddler tries to recruit Grundy, and because of course Grundy was, his only friend basically at one point. And eventually, after finding Grundy, he realizes that Grundy has his mind back, the same way that Ed now has the Riddler personality back. Grundy has his memories as Butch Gilzine back. And he throttles Edward and brings him to Barbara and Tabitha. And basically just says, do what you want with them. Because, of course, I believe Ed cut off her hand. Is that what happened? I can't remember because it's been so long. Because I know Butch got his hand cut off. I thought Tabitha didn't quite make it that far, but I don't remember. So they decide to just take the easy way out and just sell him to Sophia, who has him tortured in gruesome fashion, I might add. Gotham never restrains on the bloodletting, unfortunately. But Riddler doesn't give up Penguin, which is something that impresses him very much in the end. And meanwhile, Gordon and Bullock catch up with Oswald, and they try to get the location of Mr. Penn out of him. He ends up giving up the location on condition that Jim makes a bargain that he's not going to get arrested. And of course, after he gives him up, Harvey double crosses him and takes him in because for some reason, all of a sudden, Harvey's altruistic now. It's Gotham. What are you going to do? It's like these strange shifts of, I think I might have said it last week, but the loyalties shift and the motives shift on this show more times in a season than in WWE all year. Basically, motivations and loyalties will switch on an ongoing basis. Rapidly it'll happen. Anyhow, so Zaz and other guy happens again, and in this case, Lee rescues Oswald, and they take off. Meanwhile, nothing is accomplished again in the shootout. Lee's plan is to freeze Oswald, and so in this she recruits Mr. Freeze because she wants revenge against Sophia for breaking her hand. If nothing else, of course, also for getting her trouble, by replacing her with Samson in the Narrows. Because obviously now all of a sudden she's a leader of the Narrows, a leader of men. And it's interesting to see what they did to this character. I mean, originally in the comics, Lee Tompkins is an elderly woman that was there to comfort Bruce Wayne when his parents died. And, that was sort of only like a momentary thing that happened that night, that fateful night, that endeared them to each other. And when Bruce grew up, she was one of the few people that he entrusted with his identity, that if he needed medical attention, he would go to her. So anyway, now we have her as, like I said, as like a femme fatale, a leader of men, a gangster, another player in the gangster field. Interesting. So anyway, she has Mr. Freeze come in, recruits Mr. Freeze to freeze Penguin and to deliver him to Sophia, who sends Edward off to get killed at the dock. Then Penguin breaks free, and he has it out with the guy that was the torturer. I forget. I think his name was the dentist. He was in episodes before this. I don't remember, but I don't think he kills him, although what was to stop him, I don't know. But he finds out that Riddler is being carted off to be destroyed dumped in the river. And Penguin goes and ices the two guys, no pun intended, and saves the Riddler. And you know, like I said, he's very impressed that Riddler didn't give him up uh, upon torture. So he, you know, ends up reaffirming their friendship, their partnership, and it's a good. I think it's a good thing to see them bond again. I like to see them with Jerome as well, and have it be a threesome that's taking over Gotham. That would probably be fun. Anyway, so Gordon and Bullock find Penn, which is in this picture you see here, at some bizarre club, I guess, for everybody a 2-year-old. I don't know exactly what that was supposed to mean. So Sophia comes and, you know, her and Zaz and the other guy, and they shoot up the place. Basically, she's picking Jim off a part at a time. He's shot in the stomach, he's shot in the arms. This guy's gotten shot more times than, you know, what was the guy, Aragon in Lord of the Rings? Not Aragon. What was the guy's name? The one that's the traitor? Boromir, right? Isn't it Boromir? Gosh, I haven't seen those movies in a while. I got to see them again. Yeah, I think it was Boromir. But anyhow, he's gotten shot like that. He's getting shot here and there. And it's like, gosh, how much can he take? But Sophia, I guess, apparently is just trying to flesh wound him because she's still, you know, and Harvey takes Penn and gets away because he's the one that can, I guess, corroborate their story about Oswald and how Sophia kidnapped Martine and this and that. But she wants Jim to apologize and beg forgiveness or whatever, and he won't do it. Good for you, Jim. Good for you. And he's saved by the final bullet by Lee, who shoots Sophia point blank in the head, in the forehead. Kind of hard to understand how she survives this, because then we're later told that she's in a coma in the Gotham City Hospital. Kind of hard to walk away from that. But again, we're talking about Gotham. I mean, how many people have walked away from certain death? We've had Butch get shot point blank and he's back. We got Barbara getting electrocuted. We got, speaking of Barbara, let's get to the end of that. We got Ra's al Ghul apparently haunting Barbara because she's getting headaches and being very touchy. And, well, there's a joke that can be made there that I'm not going to make. But anyway, she's, what her problem is really being haunted by the ghost of Ra's al Ghul. And apparently it had something to do with the bargain she made with him in order to come back when she came back after the electrocuting. And I don't know if this means that she somehow is indebted to Ra's to kind of bring him back, or this is just something that's going to haunt her, you know, not physically, but Ra's is going to continue to haunt her metaphysically. All right, so then Lee goes back to the Narrows and takes Samson out and breaks his hand the way her hand was broken, because somebody got to get their hand broken. And that about wraps it up. So yeah, that was Gotham for you for this week. Interesting. Like I said, not a bad episode this week. As far as Gotham episodes go, not bad. I'll give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I'll give it 4.5 because it kept me entertained. It kept me on the edge of my seat. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, the worst thing you can do is bore me. And a couple of weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, not last week, but the week after, the episode was just so boring. I couldn't even stay tuned into it. So, you know, at least it was entertaining. You know, you could say this is just the same crazy merry-go-round we continue to go on with Gotham, but 4.5 stars out of 5 for Gotham. Like I said, it's kind of a return to form. I mean, finally, Harvey's back on the force. That seemed like it took a long time. You know, it was kind of a long time, this feud between Oswald and Edward, and that's over. Well, it seemed like a long time to get Bruce back to being the Bruce Wayne we kind of know and love. And they have Jim doing sort of like a reverse Dark Knight, where he's not going to own up to what he did. Instead of taking the fall for something he didn't do like Batman did, he's not going to own up, and that's going to be his punishment. I don't know. All right, so that is Gotham for this week, and we really ought to move on. Gosh. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have. Let's go to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That was a ride too. This is talking about trips. This was a trip and a half. This episode. All right. Let's see. Which one is that? Pink. All right. The notes. I got color coordinated notes here. I'm trying to find. Okay. So the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team, they are still in a bunker where this mysterious rift keeps poking out and causing fear manifestations. They're not hallucinations because they really can kill, as we've seen that they're dangerous. And it starts off with Gemma seeing the astronaut, which I guess it is meant to evoke Will from the third season, her beau from that year. And they shoot him and he's destroyed. And so it's not much of a problem. But this rift thing is a problem because if they can't tap it down, then there's going to be trouble. So they got to use the gravitonium, but they don't really know how to use the gravitonium. And Fitz is like racking his brain, and he's basically driving himself crazy because he can't figure out a way to use the gravitonium to seal the rift. And so meanwhile, Coulson and his team want to try to head off General Hale at the pass. So they find her location or whatever and kidnap her and a couple of her men, including the Absorbing Man. Now, Deke is fun. Deke is like he's so cute. He's trying to get close to his grandparents, and they don't even know they're his grandparents. And he's like staring at at Gemma, and Fitz is like getting very annoyed with him, and you could tell he just wants to tell them in the worst way. But it's one of those things. Is it wrong to tell them? Is that going to be some kind of time paradox? Well, we're not talking about the CW DC shows, so maybe not. Maybe you'll be able to tell them by the end of the episode. Now, all right, the main thing is the Doctor is back. At least that's the way he identifies himself, the Doctor, which is the bad guy version of Fitz from the Framework. Evil Fitz is in the house. Yes, he is. And he knocks out Deke, and he has a robot, which I don't remember how he got this robot. Meanwhile, we got, Max stole a robot so he could get the arms for Yo-Yo. And of course, Yo-Yo is still trying to learn how to use them with the nerve sensors to get them to move the hands and the fingers and stuff, which she's doing a little bit and not really coming along as fast as, everybody hopes. That was always fascinating to me. How do you get the nerves to move an inanimate, object like that? That's pretty interesting. But so anyway, Fitz uses one of the robots to kidnap Daisy, and apparently, the Doctor knows something that Fitz doesn't. He knows that if Daisy uses her quake powers, because she's still got the inhibitor in her neck and she can't. Which reminds me, I'm still curious. I don't think it was really brought up before. I think we've seen it on Deke, but do they still have those metal plates in their arms or something that they were using for currency in the future? Because if I remember correctly, I think everybody got one but Daisy, and she got the inhibitor instead. But I mean, everybody got a thing in their arm that I don't think they ever removed. I don't know what the heck that's all about. So the robot also shoots Mac in the leg, and he's got the gun on them to keep them, out of his hair. And he removes the inhibitor chip very slowly, very very graphically from Daisy's neck. And all the time, Fitz confronts the Doctor about this, but he's so completely rattled, he cannot do a thing to stop him. And I was like, come on, Fitz. I know you're not, you're not gung ho, you're not He-Man or anything, but you got to do something. You got to stand up to your evil self. But he is completely shaken and rattled. And I got to hand it to Ian DeCasticker, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's really the MVP of the show because he really gives a great performance no matter who he's playing. I mean, he plays the the frightened and the confused Fitz very well. He plays the frustrated Fitz very well. He plays the Doctor very well, as sinister and almost condescending type. He does a good job with all these, very versatile actor, with all these roles. So he tries to confront the doctor, can't do it. Then he comes back and tries to confront the doctor again when the doctor's trying to take the device from Daisy, and Daisy says, "Who are you talking to?" Plot twist alert! Plot twist alert! So it turns out that apparently the doctor was only in Fitz's mind, and we see them both in the same scene. It's sort of like what happened between Fitz and Simmons during the second season after he had the brain damage, and he was seeing another version of Simmons from his mind. And so apparently he was acting out the doctor's part whenever he was doing what he was doing to Daisy. So this is a very strange thing. Now, is this something that's wrong with Fitz, or is this just something that the fear rift or whatever this is brought out of him? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think they even know, because they were talking about that at the end of the episode with Simmons and him. And of course, Daisy doesn't want the inhibitor taken out because she is afraid she's going to be the one to destroy the world. But in a montage, they show that apparently she does what the doctor suggested, which is use her powers to put the gravitronium in a ball and send the ball to the rift and close the rift. It's very confusing. I don't know. And I guess then after this, Fitz locks himself away, which is also kind of strange. I mean, the way he went about things is pretty strange, but I mean, he really did have the right answer. So I don't know. It's kind of confusing, but it's going to be one of those things where I guess everybody's going to have to try to learn to come to grips with what happened, because it was very unsettling for all. Meanwhile, we get the whole subplot with Coulson. We really haven't talked about too much here, but Coulson, he's interrogating Hale, and he finds out that she's got more ace cards than he's got, and May confronts Crusher Creel, who's of course the Absorbing Man, and he's strapped with explosives, and I guess that's the stalemate that makes Coulson decide to go with them. And he decides to go with them at the end of the episode, I guess in one way to save the rest of the team, but another way to confront the Grand High Puma of this organization, which we find out at the very end just happens to be Hydra again. Yes, Hydra will not go away no matter what you do. The Rasputin of all organizations. Hale also has the Russian guy with her from last season. Apparently he survived. Another one that I thought was like all gone, but they had his head in a jar or something, I don't know. And they managed to put his consciousness in another robot body. I don't know. And so we should have sensed it all along, right? General Hale, Hale Hydra. Well, there you have it. May didn't take the news of Coulson going off with him very well, but there really isn't much she could have done about it, because he's taking like his life very lightly now that he doesn't think he has very much more time. Hopefully the writers will have something to say about that. All right, so the story ends with Deke finally coming out and telling Simmons that he's her grandson, and Fitz's grandson, obviously. And he's like trying to console her that everything's going to be all right, because the future, is written that they're going to stay together and they're going to have children and this and that. And that's kind of something that Yo-Yo was saying earlier when she was saying, future, nothing's going to happen to her because we've already seen her in the future, that the worst thing that happens to her is she loses her arms, and that's already happened, so nothing worse can happen to her. And if something does happen to her, it shows that they're out of the loop and that things will change, which is still yet to be determined. But anyway, so he tells her the line that she was famous for inventing, apparently, in the family. Just put one foot in front of the other. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but you'll get there. Something to that effect. And she realizes that he's her grandson. And it's a real relief for him, I think. And it's really, because he really wants a family, because his family has been gone for so long. But now he realizes he has, and he said it earlier on in the episode, too, that he has a stake in their relationship. And everybody, kind of thinks he's crazy, but that's the reason why, because they're his grandparents. And Now he's got someone that he can be close to, and and then at the very end, Simmons throws up. Now, a lot of people, I didn't take this right off the bat as confirmation, but a lot of people are saying that that just goes to show that she's already with child, as they say, which would be interesting. These two didn't really even have a honeymoon yet. I don't know if that's a little too soon to think that they may be uh, expecting, as they say. But anyhow, this was a good episode. Yeah, this is another one that was, it held my attention really, really well. It was a great plot twist. Don't know what's going to happen. You would think that there would be some, now that they're married, there'd be some kind of break in this tension between them all the time. But nope, it's still there. There's always going to be something to drive these two apart. As Fitz would say, they're cursed. I remember the beginning of the episode where it was saying Fitz was saying that he was hoping it would be a dream, that a dream rift would open or something like that. They didn't mention a monkey. That was what disappointed me. We all know that he wants a monkey. That's Fitz's greatest dream is a monkey. He needs to have a monkey, and they haven't mentioned that yet this year. I don't think so. As an ongoing gag, that's what he always wanted. But yeah, very cool episode. I'm gonna say 4.5 stars out of 5, and I don't know. This was a good contender for episode of the week, but I I really like Gotham. I mean, I really liked Krypton. I got my locations mixed up, but I like Krypton. We're gonna save that for the last episode. But yeah, 4.5 stars out of 5 for Shield, and we're gonna keep an eye on that because that was a real good episode. So let's see how Shield wraps up this season. Let's do Black Lightning first because Black Lightning was a little bit easier to review. I think the Legends of Tomorrow, which was also very good, it was a little bit more difficult and complex to get around. So let's talk about Black Lightning. So we start the show here with Black Lightning, and he's knocking the stuffing out of a punching bag. Like I said, I always like that. I always like that when they do the punching bag thing because it's a lot of fun. They did that in the '90s Flash show once in a while, and it's like a boxing thing. It's different than the martial arts that we always see the superheroes do. All the superheroes are jumping around and doing flying kicks and AJ Styles moves and stuff. But it's fun once in a while to just see a guy slugging it out, getting in there, getting your chin down and throwing hands, as they say. So I like that, and I thought that was fun to see. Um, Now where were we with Henderson? He was going to help uh, set up the green light people he was following them and trying to find out what was going on. Uh, so well, let's get to Thunder and Lightning, so to speak. Jennifer and Anissa. So Anissa lets the cat out of the bag because Jennifer thinks she's going crazy because her cell phones, whatever, keep blowing up, or smartphones. What am I in the '90s? So Anissa tries to tell her that they got powers, and she don't really want to believe her until she lifts the bed up, with her bare hands, and that naturally freaks out Jennifer, and she goes down and tries to rationalize this with Jeff and Jeff and Lynn, and they pretty much have to own up that it's true. They have powers, and she has powers, and everything. Now Lynn kind of reads the riot act to Anissa, which is what they did to Jennifer earlier on in the season. So I guess what's good for one is good for the other. But and it's true. I mean, it really wasn't her place to tell her this, but somebody had to. That was kind of the point because they couldn't just keep passing this off as if she was never going to find out. Now, apparently, this is this is something that's going to be a stumbling block in the road for these two because you know, she Jennifer doesn't want powers. Apparently, in the show, she's not the go getter that Anissa is, and she doesn't really want to fight crime and stand up for the rights of mankind and so forth. So this is not really as exciting an experience for her as it was for Anissa. So let's see. Next up, Now Gamby, he he goes to one of his former colleagues there and apparently injects him with poison, with a snake venom, in order to get the name of the person who was framing Black Lightning, because he's trying to get to the bottom of that too. And of course, he gets to the bottom of that because Gamby's quite a cool dude. He's he's got like Commissioner Gordon, Alfred, and like all that stuff all wrapped up into one. He knows what he's doing. Then we get the scene. There's going to be at least usually one heavy-handed scene. Now this is where they get like the sleazy lawyer, and they're dressed up as Barack Obama and Michelle Obama with the masks and stuff, and the guy's like freaking out and and saying that he voted for them twice and stuff. So yeah, he gives them the information they're looking for, and gee, I don't even remember too much of this episode now. That's why it was kind of a very generic episode. Uh, Gamby ends up giving Anissa the costume. That's like the big the big important reveal of this episode. She's finally in a protective costume and not the Supremes outfit. But it looks good as a costume. As far as costumes go, it looks good, and it's supposed to give her protection, I guess, of being bulletproof, because we see her getting shot at, and I think she was even getting shot at in the head, and she still was, safe. So I don't really know what happened there. So then they go into the green light lab where they're making this green light drug, and they, you know, smash up the joint, beat up the bad guys. Uh, and apparently, I guess Henderson sort of got the proof he needed by following them. I don't know, but I don't know. Anyway, so basically, at the end of the story, Jefferson and Jennifer make up, and she's not mad at him anymore for not telling her, and they watch The Princess and the Frog, if I remember correctly. And it's a nice scene. It's nice. Like I said, if they stick to the family matters on the show, the family affairs, if I'm to mention any more, any more sitcoms, they do well. They didn't have Tobias Whale on this one. I don't know if I personally missed him, but there wasn't really a big villain presence this week. Like I said, it just seemed like they were just going through thugs and stuff. And also, what's his name? Lala. We didn't hear anything about him, which kind of is a relief, because that story with him seeing his dead victim or whatever, that was pretty weird. And I don't know if I'm going to even like where they're going with that. But interesting anyway. It was an interesting episode. I'm going to give Black Lightning 4 stars out of 5 this week. That's 4 stars out of 5 for Black Lightning. Okay. It wasn't as big a deal as some of the other shows this week. It was probably, it was the least memorable to me anyway. All right, let's get to Legends of Tomorrow, and we'll talk about Krypton last. We'll save that big debut for last. And this is the episode where Mollis completely takes over Sarah. It starts off with her having some kind of nightmare of a kid. And so I don't know, is that supposed to be Astra, the one that Constantine lost? Well, anyhow, Constantine comes back, and that's good because apparently he's going to be a returning character next season. So this might be, what cements his role in the show, and that would be nice because then we could maybe get rid of Ava, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, let's see. So now it's the death totem, I guess, is what does this to her. Again, that's usually, to be honest with you, why I watch Legends of Tomorrow late in the week, because I want to be a little more remembering the episode. But this was back on Monday I seen it, so it's hard. I have to look at these notes. So everybody tries to find Constantine. They can't find him to try to reach Sarah because Sarah's being taken over, and she's basically going around and picking them off one at a time. And she clobbers Ray and um, I forget who else did she clobber. Somebody else tried to go after her too. I don't remember. And she sees herself as the Black Canary, which was something that I liked a lot because to me, Sarah was the best Black Canary. They should have just left her in the role. Of course, she was a fan favorite, and she ended up coming to Legends of Tomorrow that way, becoming White Canary, becoming eventually the captain of the Waverider. Uh, I would prefer that they kind of just left her as Black Canary. We don't even see her really as White Canary anymore. So I don't know. To be honest, that's probably what I wish would have happened. But of course, like I said, in the perfect world, she would have wound up with Oliver. She would have been the Black Canary, and we would be having a very closer hued show to the Green Arrow comics. All right, so let's see. Let me see if I can find some notes here. Wally saves them from being killed, and he attempts to knock out Sarah and tie her up. But when he goes to do this, he sees Jesse Quick, because Moss apparently can manifest these different appearances. And he sounds like he's a little bitter. He's a little bitter about breakup because that's the reason why, uh, you know, they're not together anymore. And he's kind of resisting Mollus's tricks here, and she ends up Sarah, Sarah possessed by Mollus ends up knocking him out. So Wally's down. So Ava goes and gets Constantine. Now this is what's fun. Constantine's out there chasing a chicken like Mickey and Rocky 2, and like Rocky and Rocky 2, and now he's got speed. um, Apparently, what Ray was trying to do was fix the fire totem. That's going to play into this later on, so we'll get to that in a second. So Ava and Gary, who's also in this, goes to Constantine, and he tries to do some mumbo jumbo to send them into the spirit realm, I suppose. Now, meanwhile, Mollus is still playing havoc with the rest of the team, and he manifests as Nate's grandfather. What was his name again? Citizen? No, Nate is Citizen Steel. He was Commander Steel, and he's telling him that he's a failure and this and that. And he kind of sounds like he's buying it, I guess, but he knows that it's not the real Commander Steel. And Zari sees her dead brother, her little brother who was young, and so basically Mollus is just playing them all, and he's playing them all. And Zari sees through it and smashes the control apparatus. And Sarah ends up knocking her out. So meanwhile, uh, Sarah is in the Mollus realm, so to speak, and she sees Nora, because Nora is intermittently possessed by Mollus too. So that's she tries to convince Sarah that nobody can resist Mollus, and that's gonna happen. All right, so yeah, let's see. So they give Mick the fire totem, which is like made to order for him, and he uses it to I don't know. This guy is so verbose in his notes that I can't even find out. I can't even find out where I am. So he uses fire totem on Sarah. I think that's what ends up knocking Mollus out of the picture. And Ava and Constantine come back and try to use their powers as well to try to, or Constantine powers. They try to use Constantine's powers to try to get the spirit of Malice to release her. And Sarah rejects Malice and Nora's advances for her to join the team. And Nora tries to convince her that she's still full of darkness, which is, I guess, what's manifested in the Black Canary. But so anyway, Sarah wakes up. She's all right and recovers, and she breaks it off with Ava. Thankfully, I fully don't expect this to be the end. They're gonna go back to this again and again and again, like they did with Supergirl, and I don't really see it. I would say that maybe they would try to get her hooked up with Constantine because they seem to be, having something in common. You know what I mean? They both have been damaged, and they both have appreciation for each other's flaws and weaknesses and faults. And I think that's something that they probably could work with in the future going forward. And who would have thought that? Because it's strange, because Constantine had his own show, and Constantine had his own supporting characters, and none of them are around here, and they're never mentioned. And you never know what happened to them. There was the guy that always dies and always comes back. I don't know what the heck he is. There was Zed, the girl that replaced the girl that played Maid Marian. And then there was the Angel, the Black Angel guy there that just did, like, leading them on. And, he was always, tormenting him in a sense. I don't know. I don't know if any of that stuff's going to get translated to the show once he's on the show, but I don't know. Interesting. All right, so this was a good episode. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I enjoyed it. Again, these are earlier in the week. It's harder for me to remember, but bear with me. And yeah, 4.5 stars out of 5 for Legends of Tomorrow. Now let's get to the main event, the grand finale. We've got the Krypton series premiere. Krypton, here we go. All right, so as the story starts, we have Seg-El, who is the grandfather of Superman, narrating a journal of sorts where he tells Kal-El, his grandson, about what's happening, or I guess maybe from the point of view that it's already happened, and this is what happened, that how he saved his legacy and stuff. So at the beginning of the episode, we have Seg's grandfather, and Seg is like 10 or something at the time. Seg's grandfather, Val-El, is tried for sedition. Isn't that always the way for the El family? They're always in trouble with the council and the ruling class and the muckety mucks. Oh, they got in for the L's. I don't know why. So he's charged with sedition because apparently he knows that there's other life in the universe, and the council don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. But he knows that there's an imminent threat coming towards them in the form of Brainiac, which he talks about later to Seg. But he's sentenced to death, and he tells Seg basically to be strong and, grandfatherly things before he's basically, and this is kind of strange, but he's made to walk the plank. He's like walking out into like this snowstorm or something until the ground gets pulled out from underneath him and he goes falling into the abyss of sorts. I don't know. Did that have something to do with maybe The Dark Knight Rises, where they were supposed to walk out on the ice or something? Anyway, this is before the Phantom Zone, of course, because if you remember, the Phantom Zone was discovered by Jor-El. So since Jor-El isn't born yet, this is what happens. All right, so we flash forward to the future, and Seg is basically doing a Captain Kirk, Chris Pine impression and getting into bar fights for money because apparently he's got a bet with his buddy at the bar, and that's a bartender, with, I guess, maybe with other people backing him, that he can last in a bar fight or something longer than anyone else. And he's fighting with these three guys that he owes money to, apparently. And he ends up paying them off. So then we find Seg's parents are poor and have no rank, no status. Seg's father works at some kind of government complex. And the Seg's grandfather forgets his medicine or something. And so Seg goes to meet him at the complex, which I guess he's not really allowed to be in, but he has to give him his medicine. And there is some kind of strange dude there. That's you must have seen the promo with the three-sided head. He's got like a face on three sides of his head, maybe four if he turns around. I don't know, maybe four if you count him twice. But he ends up. This guy is called the Voice of Rao, and this is apparently the same guy that gave his grandfather trouble. And he was about to blow up because of an insurrectionist or something. And basically trying to protect his father, not wanting his father to die, Seg clobbers the guy with the bomb in his hand, and it's a pretty good special effects shot because the guy's got like a exploding arm or something, and the soldiers or whatever like blast his arm off, which was pretty cool. So the guy that's in charge there, his name is Darren Vex, I believe. And he basically is impressed. He's the one that's sort of like the public defender, I guess, or something of the council, and he's the one that like had sentenced his grandfather to death. So now he's giving Seg a chance to be adopted into the Vex family and marry his daughter. He's like offering him his daughter, and he's going to enroll him in sort of the scientific council or something. And he, Seg kind of agrees to go along with it because Darren's daughter's kind of hot. That's not that's not a problem there, and he's going to get a seat on the scientific council eventually, apparently. But his parents aren't coming for the ride, and of course, he still can't keep the family name of L. He has to be adopted into this this new family. So meanwhile, we've got the Zods, Allura Zod. Allura, isn't that Supergirl's mother's name? Wow, where did this come from? So Allura Zod she's that woman that played in she played an Amazon in Wonder Woman. That's a pretty cool thing if you've seen her. That's where she comes from. And she's like as the Zods are supposed to be in charge of the planet's defenses. And her daughter Lyta is doing a training exercise where they're fighting and this and that, and she goes pretty rough on Lyta by stabbing her hand. That's that cliche thing that I'm so sick of seeing. Somebody stabbing their hand through an object into a table or a floor or something like that. I mean, or a wall. I mean, that's not something you really walk away from. That's something that basically you have to have major surgery, and your hand will probably never be the same again. But they do this all the time as if, oh well, that's a cool action scene, all right. No, you pretty much crippled someone. You shattered pretty much every bone in their, hand. You probably ruined more nerves in the middle of their hand where they probably couldn't pick up a glass to have a drink of water. I just wish we could stop with the being stabbed through the hand thing into an object or something. It's just, I don't know. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it. That's why I'm bringing it up. But we had it again here. Okay, so Seg ends up. I don't know. I kind of missed what happened here, but Seg got into a fight with the police for some reason, and Lita stops them from arresting him and basically takes him out back, and then we find out they're an item, and apparently he's in love with her. This is the thing that kind of is the only thing that I think is a stumbling block in this show. They set up this star-crossed lovers thing with Zod and L. Now, I don't know. I mean, for one thing, of course, the Zods are all black, which is also going to be, obviously, that's a problem because, you're going to have to say that the actor that plays Superman is probably going to be, you know, black or half black, whatever the case is, if you're going to continue on with this line of reasoning that they're going to end up together. The other problem is obviously that Zod is uh, kind of a, you know, they're the bad guys, in other words. You know what I'm trying to say? If you're going to say that they're somehow in the family tree, then you're going to say that Superman basically is a Zod nephew. That's also putting uh, a different perspective on the characters that needs to be there. I just hope they're not going to go further with this. Now the hot chick that he's engaged to, um, what's her name? Nissa. Apparently, Nissa is this girl's name. She looks kind of like a Supergirl, um, like a oh, what's her name? I'm forgetting her name. She's even on the Supergirl show nowadays, but the original Supergirl actress, Helen Slater. She kind of looks like a Helen Slater. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if Nissa is going to, in some way, be a descendant of the Supergirl branch in the family. That's very likely to me. I think that's what's going to happen. All right, so now let's get to Adam Strange. We haven't even mentioned this. Adam Strange has been walking around, and I thought that was a pretty funny joke. He said he was from a place called Detroit, and I said, yeah, like located right next to the planet Houston. It's kind of a cool, nod, so to speak. But the thing is it's difficult because they have him dressed like he's from a trailer park or something, Adam Strange. I don't know why they didn't give him like the space-aged outfit. That probably would have been something that made him blend right in here. But maybe that's the point. Maybe they don't want him to blend right in because he'll look too much like, you know, a member of Krypton. He's here basically just by the skin of his teeth that he's getting there. You know what I mean? I don't think he made this as a pleasure trip. So anyhow, Adam Strange basically tries to tell him all the stuff that he needs to know about finding the fortress, and he has to save his, planet from you know, the oncoming Brainiac that's going to be Annihilator of Worlds, I think they call it. So he doesn't get the whole deal because then Adam Strange gets some kind of illness about him and disappears. And he gives Seg that key crystal thing that like kind of from Man of Steel. Now you got to remember this was basically the brainchild of David Goyer, who did Man of Steel, so it's going to have some ties to Man of Steel. For instance, they have the Genesis chamber where the children are all birthed in pods or something. That's something I never liked in Man of Steel, and I don't like they're doing it here. But I don't know. They had that scene with him and her where they had their like blood tested and they found out what their first child was going to be like. I was trying to figure, is that blood test mean that they're creating that child now? I don't know. Is that in the works and that's all they need to do? I don't know. I don't know how that works. So so Seg lets his parents in on this whole thing that happened with Adam Strange. Seg goes back to Lyda. Is that her name? I don't know. And the police end up giving him trouble again, and I think they want the crystal that Adam Strange gave him. And but I don't know. So he takes the crystal and runs off. I think that's the part where I didn't understand what was happening because I guess for some reason they were just accosting him. I don't know. But anyhow, he's saved by his mother in the speeder, and they go to Val-El's Fortress of Solitude. Now, there's no other way around it. He already had a Fortress of Solitude on Krypton. Now, this is a deviation, kind of, because I always thought the Fortress would be something that Jor-El created for Superman, but this could be something that goes back, that they had a fortress, a kind of fortress, way back when, and the L members of the family, all the L members of the family would go there to have solitude, basically, and to find out and discover, what their plans were, what they needed to do. Um, all right, so now the Kryptonian military are chasing them again, and so she gives herself up, basically. His mother gives herself up to the military, and she gets brought into the prison, and the mother of Lady Zod there tries to get her to, confess, and she tries to say that, they'll try to go easy on Seg if you confess and stuff. Um, so she gets put on trial, and Seg's father comes and sort of tries to take the blame and, take the fall for her. And she ends up, uh, you know, Zod's, Lady Zod's mother ends up killing the father, and Seg's mother ends up, trying to pull an assassination attempt on them, and she gets killed. So basically, it just felt like a rush to wipe out the entire L family except for Seg. It feels like they had a rush to kill them off, and I don't know why. I guess they only had a set amount of episodes they're doing, and they wanted to get them out of the show as soon as possible to take any props away from Seg that he could use to help himself. But it's kind of, that's the one weakness of the show, was I think they were in a rush to kill off his parents. I mean, I think Sindel's parents lasted longer in Battle for Endor than they did in this episode. But yeah, I don't know. That was kind of disappointing to me. All right, so Seg ends up, of course, being a little, he's disconsolate, let's say, and he goes off, and he says he's going to be on his own, and he gets a spaceship and goes back to the Fortress of Solitude, where he sees Adam Strange again, who's apparently now not doubling over in pain or whatever. And he gives Seg the Superman cape, complete with the yellow shield in the back, and the cape is like slowly getting eaten away from the bottom. And he tells him that it's basically the same concept as the photos in Back to the Future. When the photo disappears or changes or something, you know that it's too late. And so basically, as long as this cape exists, that means Superman is still alive in the future. But he has to reclaim the House of L. He has to, put the House of L on the map. He's got to, um, do away, obviously, with this Voice of Rao character, and save Krypton from the Destroyer of Worlds, or whatever he calls himself, Brainiac. And so Strange disappears again. He leaves, and we also find that Val, the grandfather of Seg, has sort of, made himself uh, a holographic image, a recording almost the same as Jor-El in the original Superman movies, where he's going to obviously be able to interact with Seg in this Fortress of Solitude. And we also get a glimpse of Brainiac and the big ship coming. And of course, Brainiac is going to be the main antagonist of the show, I think, because he has to stop him from disseminating the world or whatever. But anyhow, that was it. I thought it was a real good episode. I thought it was a real good premise. I think this is going to be a pretty good show. It succeeded in a lot of ways that the other shows have failed. Like, for instance, Gotham, you're basically waiting for Bruce Wayne to get old enough to play Batman, and by the time he gets old enough, all his supporting villains have already, you know, done their thing ad nauseum. And, it's the same thing as Smallville, where, you're waiting for Clark Kent to become Superman. By then, he's already met all his friends and foes, and it's kind of, you've done a show, you've done a Superman show without Superman. This is actually a very interesting concept. The descendant of Superman having to preserve the life of Superman from the past, and eventually, the show at least should have a prescribed runtime where, a limit on how much they can do, because at a certain point, Krypton needs to be destroyed and Sega has to die, and at that point he'll be an old man, but that's the point where, we're not doing the story everybody knows. We're doing the story before the story everybody knows, and it's a very interesting concept to do something like that. So I'm going to give Krypton 5 stars out of 5 for its premiere episode. 5 stars out of 5. It also gets episode of the week, which is a very, sought after title. All right, so once again, we had a really good, schedule of shows this week. I didn't think there were any of them that were really bad. A couple of them were a little more fillerish, maybe, but most of them really entertaining, really exciting. Krypton, of course, the premiere, I found very entertaining as well. And again, apologies for the fact that some of the notes were a little bit cumbersome to get through for some of the shows because some of the writers were too verbose with these synopses that I read. And also a little tired. I don't know if that comes across too well, but so have a happy and blessed Holy Week if I don't see you by next week, which I probably will. Happy Easter as well. And we're going to try to get back into another show sometime next week. Thank you for joining us on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnnie Torch Live. Johnnie Torch Live number 64. And until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.